It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. So goes the opening of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, the story of London and Paris at the time of the French Revolution in 1789, also told by Victor Hugo in Les Miserables. This morning, we have a tale of two trees, the best of times, the worst of times. The first tree. Moses comes out of the wilderness, a barren and dry place, leading his father-in-law's sheep to still water and green pasture. An angel appears out of a tangle of burning brush, but it's not the angel that fascinates Moses. Our sense of disbelief sets in as our eyes try to focus. The fire is just burning. It's not altering the size or shape of the bush, so we step closer. What is this? Why doesn't this burn up? What kind of tree or bush is this? Why is it not destroyed? What sort of flames are these? Why is there no pile of ashes or of rubble? The best of times, the Lord sees that Moses is paying attention, and he speaks. I am what I am. Oh, that I had a nickel for every time I thought to myself, well, I've never had a burning bush experience or anything, but I know there's a God. I'll bet each of us has had at least one burning bush moment, but missed it just as Moses did when he neglected to see the angel peering at him out of the bush. We so often simply choose not to take the time to look or listen. I hear people say, I love the Gospels. They're so full of miracles, and Jesus is always healing. Why doesn't that happen anymore? Could it be that we, like the Corinthians, lead distracted, self-absorbed lives, greedily squandering our time for personal satisfaction, building proud towers that cannot reach to heaven? Is it possible that God might just be waiting for us to put down our busyness, to put aside ourselves, and listen to what God is saying? When the Lord saw that Moses had turned aside to see, God spoke to Moses, calling him by name. Moses, Moses, says the Holy One who is. Don't come any closer, says the one who is now and will be forever. Remove your shoes so that you are able to feel the holy ground between your toes. This holy ground on which I invite you to stand before the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He's already caught a glimpse when Moses begins to realize who is speaking to him and hides his face out of fear. I have observed the misery of your people in their worst of times. I have heard their cries. I know their suffering, and I have come to deliver them. You will go to Pharaoh and bring your people away. Pharaoh's a mighty and cruel force. He rules over this land, worshipped by his own as a god, feared by my people as a brutal taskmaster. I am just one of his voiceless slaves. How can I possibly convince him to let us go? I will stand with you. You will not fall. I am your helper. My right hand will hold you fast. I am your power to endure, and you will be all that I created you to be, and do all that I have asked you to do. This is the best of times. Your misery, your cries of agony, your suffering are mine, says the great I Am to the people of Ukraine. And the people of Ukraine respond, God will get us through this. That's all we can say in this worst of times. Our second tree. Once upon a time, there was a fig tree, all alone in a great tangle of vineyard. Grapes and the vines on which they rested were everywhere. Every time the fig tree tried to bring forth its fruit, birds would fly down from the sky and peck holes in the not yet ripe fruit. Rodents would climb up its trunk and strip the figs off their branches, flinging them to the ground and leaving them to rot. The owner of the vineyard had many, many acres on which to grow grapes, and thousands of farmers working night and day to tend the grapes in order to provide him with the best harvest money could buy. He had observed the beauty of the fig tree and had always marveled that it continued to grow in his vineyard. For 3 years the fig tree had stood there in the midst of grapevines which consumed all the water and choked out the sunlight. But as the owner walked his acres that day, the fig tree angered him, and he mocked it, saying, You have greatly disappointed me. You will never amount to anything. You are using up space where I could be growing more grapes. Cut it down now, he said to the nearest gardener. The gardener fashioned a shelter with his arms around the fig tree and said to the owner, Wait, I will feed and water this fine tree so that it will become all it was meant to be. It has stood this long with no help from you. I tell you, do not cut it down. The owner walked off, laughing at the folly of the gardener and plotting to come back under shadow of night and destroy the brave tree. If we've been looking for miracles, they are all around us as our hearts ache for the people of Ukraine. The best of times, the worst of times. There are Ukrainians from countries all over the world who are returning to fight for the lives and freedom of their compatriots. All across Europe, nations are opening their boundaries, their hearts, their homes to millions of refugees fleeing from the devastation of Ukraine. There are folks in the United States leaving home, family, and livelihood in the struggle to transform Ukraine's winter of despair into a spring of hope, with skills ranging from EMTs to chefs to forklift operators to veterinarians. We rejoice as we give thanks to God for the bravery of these brave, yet feel so overwhelmed. What can I do to help? Write a check, pray every day, all day. But those are such small things, we say. They may seem like small things, but they are not in any way insignificant. Father Tom reminded us in Bible study this past Wednesday of the word solidarity. In God we stand with the people of Ukraine, and we will not fall as long as we keep God as our focus. We may not all be called upon to engage in mortal combat with the evil dragon, Vladimir Putin, nor are we all called to cross the ocean and half the European continent to volunteer our gifts. But we are called to love and serve Christ in all persons, friends, enemies, different colors, different faiths, different genders, different political parties. We are called to put ourselves aside and listen to what the Spirit is saying. The miracle is that we are able to remove our shoes and feel, even between our toes, the holy ground God has invited us to stand on when we love. Amen.